The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army.
Welcome to the Benjamin Dixon Show. I am your host, Benjamin Dixon. Today is Monday, March 9th, 2020. Thanks so much for joining us. Today is probably going to be the most jam-packed show ever. So I imagine that the public show is going to be about 45 minutes long, and the Patron show is going to be an hour and a half long. So here goes my shameless plug at the top of the hour. If you want the full hour and a half, you know what to do. So I won't even say it. Let's start with, I guess, something that is extremely sobering. The coronavirus I think the coronavirus has to be the most, I've never seen something perfectly attuned to bringing capitalism to its knees and exposing the flaws in our system. And something that first, don't take what I'm getting ready to say incorrectly. I just want to start by saying, in a way, the spread of this virus, I guess any virus for that matter, the spread of the virus begins in the first world. It begins with people who can travel, people who can literally afford to travel to spread it. Now, this does not mean that poor people are not going to be some of the worst victims of this. That's not how it plays out in the long run. But in terms of the spread, like we're seeing is people who are coming back from trips to Italy. Like here in Georgia, we have 3 cases now, and all 3 of them were in Italy. Most of us, well, you probably going to Italy, but the majority of us probably will never go to Italy. What I'm saying, there's a class component to this virus, and it's going to seep down, obviously, to everyone. And the victims are the people who are going to be hit the most are the people who can't afford to get treatment or go to the hospital because they don't have insurance or they don't have adequate insurance. Then you combine that with the fact that we have a post-fact America. We are living in a post-truth, post-fact America where we have a president who is doing all of the things that are necessary to cause this virus, the spread, the death toll to be exacerbated significantly. And so it is not only a virus that is exposing the class dynamics in our society. It's also exposing the fact that we are a post-fact society, right? Where everyone's opinion is given the same weight as objective fact. And the fact that we are at the pinnacle of that moment where the idiocracy is in place because of Donald Trump. We saw a glimmer of this with George W. Bush, but the full manifestation, I pray on everything that we can't go actually further than the idiocracy that has been instituted by Donald Trump. But here's the irony, right? Not only will this virus be exacerbated by the fact that we are in a post-fact society with the naked emperor in the White House. Everyone is having to praise the emperor just to keep their jobs when their job is to protect us from the spread of this virus. But now you also have Republicans who are trying to spin this as something that has been put together, concocted by the Democrats. Now you have one person who tested positive for the coronavirus who attended the Conservative Political Action Committee, CPAC, conference this weekend. And guess who this person came in contact with? Ted Cruz, potentially, what's the lady's name? Kellyanne Conway. People who would otherwise have direct contact with the president of the United States. So conservatives who have been rejecting the facts because, 1, out of political expediency, 2, because they're trying to make sure that the economy doesn't tank because of their politics, and 3, simply because we're in a post-fact society, those people have been hit directly. Ted Cruz is having to self-quarantine himself because he shook hands with the person who had the coronavirus. And all last week, they were pretending as though this is something concocted by the Democratic Party. So it exposes the class problems in America. It exposes the medical crisis. And it also exposes not just the medical crisis, but it also exposes the fact that our system, our medical system, our healthcare system is damn near evil. Because now the pharmaceutical industry is not only demanding money to create the vaccine, but they're also from the government. I got to make that point clearer, right? I kind of stumbled over that. Let me make that clear. The pharmaceutical industry is demanding that the government provide them with grants in order to research and develop a vaccine. Okay, I think that's reasonable. What's not reasonable is that they expect to be able to charge exorbitant prices so that they can maximize their profits after the government has given them the money to develop the vaccine in the first place. Whew. I just edited out. Side note, I just edited out a terrible coughing spell. I edited it out because I didn't want you to feel like, oh my God, I need to cut this off. I might catch whatever Ben has. And this is not a laughing matter, but we have to laugh for not crying. The pharmaceutical industry is trying to not only get money from taxpayers. I told you, I've been saying it. They make money off of our taxes. Then they make money off of our labor. Then they make money off of our consumption. They make money off of our sickness. They make money off of our cancer. They make money off of our diabetes. They make money off of our HIV. They make money off of everything, even after we have given them the tax dollars to develop the treatments. This system is pretty damn evil. Now, this is not a critique only of conservatives, because ironically enough, conservatives are about to get their own critique when the reality of how easily this virus spreads hits home. They didn't want to believe in facts. Well, the facts have come to find them, and I wish them well. I pray for them. I don't want anything bad to happen to them because I am first and foremost a human, but at the same time, you could not write a storyline better than this. Well, actually, you probably could, because the foreshadowing of this virus and what it's going to do, if this was a novel, the foreshadowing is a little bit too on the nose. It's like a little too obvious what's getting ready to happen. If this was a novel, life is stranger than fiction. But if this was a novel, the fact that Donald Trump came out saying fake news media doing everything possible to make us look bad about the coronavirus, right? Juxtapose that to what happened at CPAC this weekend and the fact that there's a direct line between someone with the coronavirus and the White House, literally the Oval Office. The foreshadowing is a little bit too on the nose. Like, whoever's narrating the story, we need you to dial it back and make it a little more subtle, because it is too patently obvious how this is going to play out if this was playing out like a story, like a tale that is told. So anyway, the market is crashing again. I'm sorry. There's so much to report, right? So they suspended trading for 15 minutes this morning because at open, the Dow Jones dropped 7% immediately after opening. I mean, billions of dollars in wealth lost instantly at opening. The oil, the price of a barrel of oil has plummeted. And this, my friends, exposes the fact that what's good for the consumer is bad for the investor. Because, thank God, gas is going to drop. Depending on how the oil wars play out, there's also an international and geopolitics. There's an oil war that's happening. So the balance of the two, let's see how that balances out. But overall, the fact remains, what's good for consumers is bad for investors. That's because we have designed a system that has put us at odds with each other, and we're perfectly fine with that because it has benefited the ruling class for generations. And here we are with a single virus that exposes the fact that, one, it's transferred easily by first world problems. Right? People who travel, luxurious travel, they're the ones bringing it to America, not people crossing at the border. Right? So it's exposing the racism of this country, obviously, because the virus is coming into this country through legal ports of entry. It's coming to this country through people who are well off enough to actually go abroad and get it. Okay? right? So it's being brought to the country generally by the well-to-do. I'm sure there's some cases that doesn't make what I say categorical, right? But in general, when you look at how viruses spread globally, they're spread through airlines, people doing international travel, and poor folks ain't doing international travel. Okay. That's number one. I mean, I'm going through all this over and over again. I just want you to see how this virus is eerily perfect to expose. And then you got this other component of it, right? You have the other component that it's hurting older people more than younger people. And younger people are like, well, F it. Like, I can fly to Italy I can get a round trip to Italy now for $100. Well, you can't even get into Italy. I think there was like, other nations abroad that you can get a round trip ticket, international travel for like $100. Millennials and Generation Zoomers, they're like, man, let me write that because it's not going to really hurt me that bad. So now the younger generation is just like, I think that's the joke. I don't think people are actually going to do that. We'll have to see. But it's also exposing generational divide. This thing is just exposing everything that's wrong with America right now. And this is not to speak and say that, oh, this is a good thing for millennials to be able to do this. No, it's to say that in both ways, like in a lot of ways where we see a lot of boomers, particularly well-off boomers, non-radical, well-off boomers who don't really give a damn about what we're yelling about down here in the young Generation X / millennials / Zoomers. They don't really care about what's happening, what we're yelling about, what we're fighting for politically, right? And then here we go. We have a lot of young people, or some, who are like, I don't give a damn about this virus. It's not hurting. It's not killing young people. Well, let me. Yeah, but it's going to kill the people in your orbit. You bring it back, you live fine, and you give it to Nana, and now Nana's dead. So it just exposes a lot of the tensions in our society that I don't know. Ebola couldn't do this, right? I mean, the death rate of the rate of death with Ebola, I mean, it was just unimaginable compared to what we're dealing with now. I just am amazed and really taken aback by how precisely tuned this thing is to potentially bring America to its knees. It's fascinating, but sobering.
Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and support The Benjamin Dixon Show.
And here we go. Very special welcome to all of our newest patrons, without whom this show is not possible. Welcome aboard, Kyle Sipple. Thank you for becoming a patron. Ramya A. Thank you for becoming a patron. Second Goddess. Love it. Thank you for becoming a patron. Etienne Soul. Sarah Newton. Deborah Robinson. Brian. Cassandra. Dane Howell. Vesna R. I tried really hard to pronounce that before I even started recording, and I said, you know what? Just the last initial. Vesna. Thank you so much. Lydia Noor, Gail Posey, KC, Travis Smith, Ahmed Khanna, Robin Brown, Joe Stasio, Stuart Cole, Chairman Boyd Brundage. Thank you for becoming a patron. Labor Red, Bayou Belladonna. I love it. Thank you for becoming a patron. JG Michael, Andrew, Ryan Thune, Nightly Drugs. Okay. All right. Caroline O'Driscoll, Pistol Pete, Otis Davis III. Thank you for becoming a patron. Alan, Clara Loginov. Love it. Thank you for becoming a patron. John Gomez, Louis Katz, Holly Hildreth, and Rebecca. Thank you so much for becoming a patron. You too can join this prestigious and prodigious family by going to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and getting access to twice the content without any of the advertisements like you're going to hear right here.
African-American voters in the South, African-American voters here in Detroit, they have played a pivotal role in my entire lifetime in choosing the Democratic nominee. And what I'm excited about is to hear Joe Biden even growing in enthusiasm, because he's always been talking about it, and understanding the issues of race and, frankly, racial reconciliation, racial justice, and even saying things now about choosing a black woman on the Supreme Court. So I'm happy about the diversity of our nation. I'm happy to see the coalitions that Joe Biden is building. I'm happy that I know confidently that he's going to govern in a way that brings us together as a nation across racial, religious, even party lines to begin to do the business, because we know now more than ever our adversaries from China to Russia are building in strength and determination to undermine our democracy. Our divisions as a country is our weakness. We need the candidate that can best unify all of us, and that is Joe Biden.
Okay. That was Cory Booker. That was Cory Booker this morning. Here's Cory Booker just a few weeks ago discussing the same Joe Biden.
There are definitely moments where you listen to Joe Biden and you just wonder. I think that we are at a tough point right now because there's a lot of people who are concerned about Joe Biden's ability to carry the ball all the way across the end line without fumbling. And I think that Castro has some really legitimate concerns about, can he be someone in a long, grueling campaign that can get the ball over the line? And he has every right to call that out.
Yeah. That's the real Cory Booker there. That's not the Cory Booker this morning says, well, let me protect my position in the establishment. You know, maybe I'll run in the future. I don't want to be seen as an outsider. I don't want to be seen as a rabble rouser. Why would I do that when I have come this far and the establishment can take care of me going forward? So I'll betray what I said a few weeks ago about my earnest and sincere concerns about the cognitive decline of Joe Biden. And I will turn it over and say, hey, Joe Biden is the man because he likes black people, insinuating that Bernie Sanders does not. That's politics, ladies and gentlemen. That's how politics works. What's happening right now, I don't know if I've said this expressly, but what's happening right now is that the Democratic establishment is, please, I hope that there's somebody listening to this who doesn't like me, who's going to clip this section and make it a soundbite and try to attack me with it. So please, by all means, the Democratic establishment is using black folks as a way of insulating and protecting Joe Biden from rational and reasonable criticisms about his cognitive decline. But because they have meticulously interwoven this narrative that Bernie Sanders has a problem with race, and Joe Biden, the segregationist Joe Biden, the man who told everyone that they should reject Jesse Jackson in 1988. The man, the man who is the author and the spirit behind the 94 crime bill. The man who wanted to make sure that anyone who had a quarter size of crack cocaine would spend a minimum mandatory 5 years in prison, referring to us as thugs. That man, the man who opposes the legalization of marijuana today, probably because he believes it's a gateway drug to marijuana. This man whose actions and policies have directly led to the mass incarceration of black people, black men specifically, the Democratic establishment is using black people to protect this man. And black folks are the establishment types, they're okay with it because for many reasons. Number one, it's not them voting against their own best economic interest. There's some well-to-do black folks who are just fine with the system the way it is because they came up when the system was different. See, they really think that here's the gag. Not a single boomer who was doing well today would be able to replicate their successes rather, right now. Not a one. Not a one, because the system is entirely different from when you grew up and what we're having to grow up in. You just blamed your kids because you wanted to say that they were lazy, right? Systemically, across the board, an entire not just one generation, not just Generation X. X is not doing as good as boomers. Y is not doing as good as boomers. Z is definitely not doing as good as boomers. So black boomers found a way to get a modicum of wealth in this system. And what we're saying is like, hey, pops, pop, nana, can we fix our system and take it back to where it was, where you were able to get comfortable? Because that's all Bernie Sanders is really talking about. And boomers are like, oh, hell no. You're not going to mess up my 401k. You're not going to mess up my pension. Like, listen, like the taxes on me, you're not going to raise. You want me to pay more taxes? You want me to, you're not going to pay more taxes because you're not the uber wealthy. Listen to Eddie Glaude on MSNBC discuss this.
It's ironic. that black folk will provide cover for the moderate conservative wing of the Democratic Party, the very folk who use triangulation to pass welfare reform, to pass the crime bill. The very folk, whenever the general election comes, they bank right and they take black folk for granted. I don't give a damn if Joe Biden knows us. I want to know what the policies are. I don't want empathy. I don't want folk hugging me. Right. I want policy.
Eddie Glaude, that's my dude. He's been on the show, friend of the show. I just got to take a second to say like that. Like, yeah, I want to be like that dude when I grow up. Friend of the show, but he's so right. It's ironic that black people are being used. And so everywhere you turn, the Negroes love Joe Biden. Joe Biden stood by Barack the Magic Negro. I'm wilding at this point. Barack the Magic Negro was a sketch by Rush Limbaugh for years. But that's what people are replying to these threads with now. Oh, it was Joe Biden who never tried to override Barack Obama. And so we're going to like him because he treated the first black president good. I don't know why I sound more like Jim Bob than Pop Pop. I don't know. I don't have my impersonations down. I think my Donald Trump is decent. My Donald Trump and my Barack Obama, they're fairly decent. I cannot do Bernie Sanders. I digress. The point is, I forgot the point. No, I didn't. The point is that the Democratic establishment is using blackness as a way of protecting the most anti-black person in this primary. Okay. The only person who was more anti-black than Joe Biden was Mayor Bloomberg, and we got rid of his ass. Right. Amy Klobuchar, South Bend Mayor Pete, they had their issues. They have a large amount of anti-blackness in their careers already. But Joe Biden has consistently been anti-black until he could benefit from blackness. I don't care. He always told you guys are letting this clown who was whose mentor was a segregationist, a man who himself opposed busing as a remedy to segregation, right? Kamala Harris called him out about that. And now you guys are allowing it's one thing for the establishment to coalesce around Joe Biden. That makes sense. It's another thing for them to use blackness as a way to insulate Joe Biden. It makes sense in terms of that's how politics played out, right? We saw this coming. Everybody saw this coming. Is it rational that black people are allowing themselves economically? Yes, because there are class divisions in the black community, and well-off are people who think that they're well-off, or people who are aspirationally well-off. Like, your ass is broke, but you want to be an elite. And so you're siding with the establishment. So economically, yes, it makes sense for those black people who are well off to side with the establishment, because why would they want to shake up a system from which they have benefited? The thing is this is not the same system, boomer. You are not. Guess what? Open up your 401ks today and tell me how much you've been blessed by this system. Already today, 7% of wealth has been lost. So this is not the same system. You are just the beneficiaries of the previous system, boomer. And I'm saying boomer, not to all people in a certain age category. I'm speaking specifically about people in the age category who think that everything is fine because they made out like bandits in the previous system. And if you open up your 401k this morning, you probably are ready for a communist revolution. I mean, comrade coronavirus. But this is so economically it makes sense, right? In terms of racial justice, it makes no sense whatsoever for you to be supporting one of the most anti-black person in this campaign. And so they create this facade of Bernie Sanders having this anti-blackness problem. Bernie Sanders' campaign has some problems. I've told you about them. We've discussed them. I told you I have a problem with the fact that he is not full-throatedly endorsing and supporting reparations, both politically and practically. I've got plenty to say about Bernie Sanders' campaign, but he is the least. He He is the least racially problematic person in this campaign, period. Because there's only two people in the campaign at this point. But he was the moderates. I'll give Elizabeth Warren some credit. She really, and I'm going to give her some credit in this segment, but in the Patrons episode, I'm going to rip her a new one. And her supporters. It's just what it is, right? Go become a patron and you can hear it. And then you can tell everybody how bad I was to Elizabeth Warren. But you can't do it unless you pay me. I'm ignorant. But Elizabeth Warren, at least she listened to black people, right? She listened to a lot of black people in this campaign. Some symbolism that are going to, all that kind of stuff. We'll talk about that in the Patrons episode. But it was the progressives in this campaign who were the least problematic on race. Joe Biden, the segregationist, the mentee of a segregationist, if you want to be precise. Amy Klobuchar imprisoned a black man, wrongfully imprisoned a black man as a cop, as a prosecutor. South Bend's mayor, right? Black man killed in his city, has not addressed it and actually has prevented all of the evidence from coming out. Not to mention the firing of the police chief, the black police chief, and so the moderates in this, and Mayor Bloomberg, obviously, New York, stop and frisk, everything else that we discovered. The moderates in this party were the most anti-black we've seen in a long time. And they are using black folks economically. It makes sense because boomers did fine. But in terms of racial justice, it is a shame that these black folks are allowing themselves. But then that's where you find the divide. Of course, they have insulated themselves. I'm talking about black folks now, right? And white folks in my audience, tread carefully. The same warning I gave you last week. Now, when we talk about family, we can talk about family. You can't. It just is what it is, right? Now, you can think about it. I can't control your thoughts. You can think what you want to think, but just be careful with your comments on social media. That's all I can say. I'm just a friendly, like brother to brother kind of, human brother to human brother. But, anyway, economically, it makes sense because they came up in a system in which they got enormous amounts of wealth relative to where they came from. They succeeded and they feel like they want to sustain the system. They don't realize that this system is entirely different, as evidenced by the fact that if you open up your 401k this morning, you're going to see a lot of your wealth has been just disappeared, has been eviscerated. Well, what I'm trying to tell you is that your black children, your black grandchildren are either completely left out of this system, paid wages that do not match up with the cost of living, so they're living paycheck to paycheck. They're struggling economically as well as racially in this country, and yet you are supporting the candidate that not only represents the worst in terms of blackness, anti-blackness, but he represents the worst in terms of economics. Listen, he's talking about appointing Jamie Dimon, was it to the Department of the Treasury? This is a report from Axios.com. They're talking about Mayor Bloomberg being in charge of or heading to the World Bank. Oh, that's going to work out really well. And then Jamie Dimon, CEO of JP Morgan and Chase, they're talking about putting him in as Secretary of the Treasury. So Joe Biden is already planning a Republican right-wing neoliberal trickle-down economic theory, economic paradigm to further exacerbate the situation we're currently in. My God, people. I just know, whatever. It's going to play out. It's going to play out. It's going to play out exactly the way it's supposed to play out. And that very well may include a victory for Joe Biden. Congratulations, establishment. You can protect your ranks. But Joe Biden is going to lose to Donald Trump, whether we vote for him or not.
Join us. If you want a nominee who will bring this party together, who'll run a progressive, positive campaign and turn turn this primary from a campaign that's about negative attacks into one about what we're for, because we cannot get reelect. We cannot win this reelection. We can only reelect Donald Trump if, in fact, we get engaged in this circular firing squad here. It's got to be a positive campaign, so join us.
Okay. Joe Biden. That was this weekend. He spoke for 7 minutes, and in those 7 minutes, he made several quote unquote gaffes that are actually indicative of his cognitive decline. Period. Here, just as a professional journalism kind of whatever, podcasting, just truth, right? At the end of the day, it's about the truth, whether you're a journalist or a podcaster. There was no need for anyone on the progressive side of this conversation to clip this audio to make it seem as though Joe Biden endorsed Donald Trump, right? A couple people sent me versions of that, and I refused to share them simply because this is not necessary. That wasn't what he did. That wasn't the context of what he did. What the context of what he did was so much more problematic. What he did was demonstrated that even after 3 attempts, he could not convey a thought succinctly because it escaped him. There is folks, this is not funny. This is not a conspiracy. This is obvious. And what's hilarious, but the only thing funny about this is that the fact that the people who call this type of sycophant, special pleading, they call this out in Republicans all the time. They think people who watch Fox News are brainwashed. The funny thing about it is, the only thing that's funny about this is the fact that they are behaving the same exact way, ignoring the truth about Joe Biden's cognitive decline. And the fact that that is going to be a political football, because whereas we as progressives had no reason, anybody who shared the edited version of this was either intentionally trying to make something bad worse and it backfired, or you didn't catch the whole clip, right? So just some best practices. Make sure that you listen to the whole context before you share anything. Find the original and listen to it in its entirety. That's number one. But number two, of course, Republicans had every incentive to clip this exactly the way they did, truncating the end and just leaving it where Joe Biden said, we can only reelect Donald Trump. Of course, President Trump was going to share that and get like 140,000 likes and 80,000 retweets. It's of course, that's what they are going to do, because his cognitive decline is a political liability for us, but a political football for them. And they are going to score touchdowns every single day, 3 or 4 times a day. And the fact that the Democratic establishment, or at least the players involved, right? Maybe not the establishment who actually are counting on the fact that Joe Biden is going to lose, or counting on whatever machinations they can come up with at the convention to put somebody in there that they really want in there. That's the actual establishment players. But the rank and file people who want to honestly believe that the Democratic Party would not pull the wool over their eyes, they are making special pleading. They're ignoring the truth about what's obvious. And it's just hilarious. The only thing funny about Joe Biden's cognitive decline is the extent to which the Democratic rank and file people on social media and real life will go to ignore that the emperor has not a lick of clothes to cover up his embarrassment. People on Facebook, people are saying, oh, this is fake. This is not real. This is obviously a deep cover. Like, this is obviously, a Russian operation. No, you brainwashed moron. Go look for it. Just Google. Like, they're at the stage now. Centrist, particularly older centrists who are trying to suppress the young revolution, they are at the stage in their decline where they refuse to look at the objective evidence that is microseconds away from their disposal. Also, that they can protect the paradigm that they have in their head. That's what's funny about Joe Biden's cognitive decline, not the fact that he's actually suffering it. I feel like that's depressing. I feel like that's it's elder abuse. I feel like he should not have to be exposed like this. Right? I feel like, of course, a man who's been ambitious his whole life is going to be ambitious his last go round. Of course he is. I don't blame Joe Biden on this. I blame him for his racist past. That's a whole different conversation. But his present, I would listen. This is why I ask people all the time, am I making sense? Because at any point I'm not making sense, I need somebody to grab me by the hand and tell me to sit down. Because I know full well that I have the capacity to experience cognitive decline just like Joe Biden. So when I talk about his cognitive decline, I use that phrase specifically because I don't want people to make fun of dementia. I don't want people to make fun of senility because it's real. And people in my family have suffered from it for a very long time. So I know exactly what it looks like. I know exactly how it progresses. And anyone who pays it, like, you could just Google it and find out for yourself. So it doesn't require interpersonal experiences. It really just requires a desire for the truth. And I cannot believe, I guess I can. I am disappointed to come to terms with the fact that people who we have been in a big tent with for a long time are just as susceptible to denying the truth in a visceral fashion as Donald Trump denying the truth about the coronavirus. Democrats are denying the truth of the obvious, painful truth about Joe Biden's cognitive decline, and it's going to be used to elect Donald Trump for another 4 years. That's the kicker.
He was in Congress for years. He had one senator support him. Nobody likes him. Nobody wants to work with him. He got nothing done. He was a career politician. He did not work till he was like 41, and then he got elected to something. It was all just baloney, and I feel so bad that, people got sucked into it.
Well, folks, I just like to say that it's rare that I am wrong. It's not rare that I make a mistake. I've made some mistakes on the show, like factual mistakes that I need to come back and correct every now and then. One that I never corrected in the public show was the fact that I previously said that it was Richard Nixon who was impeached. So I make factual mistakes from time to time. This was a judgment call mistake of mine. That was Hillary Clinton talking about Bernie Sanders in her Hulu documentary that is all the buzz this weekend because they've released it. And where I made a judgment error was from almost at the very beginning, like January 2019, the very beginning of this cycle. I have been adamant about lecturing you in the way, I sit in my high horse and I'm like, I'm a good person and I want to make sure everybody else is as good as me. I get like that from time to time. I know, self-righteous. I get it. I know you've yelled at me a couple of times. I know you rolled your eyes. No, you don't yell at people when you see the self-righteousness. You roll your eyes. I'm like, you probably were like, oh, God, Ben, I like your podcast, but for the love of Pete, stop being so self-righteous. I get it. And here's an opportunity for me to grow. Because since January 2019, I have been telling you to leave the Bernie versus Hillary wars behind us. I have been subtweeting. I've been trying to be above the fray. Like, can't we all just get along? And I'm like, it's going to be necessary for us to unify. Let's just ignore Hillary Clinton. All this stuff that I was saying, all the while, I did not realize that we were engaged. I know this is going to be like, no shit, Sherlock, but come on. I give you time to grow. You got to afford me the same opportunity. It wasn't until Michael Bloomberg that I finally accepted the fact that the Democratic establishment is engaging in bad faith and they will reject evidence. They will reject the truth. They will not adjust their course based on the truth. They will reject the truth to protect their power. It was a Michael Bloomberg episode that made me realize that they had no intention of being genuine with us from the very beginning. And so now with this coming out from Hillary Clinton, I'm like, not only was I wrong about the Democratic establishment, but I was wrong about your anger. I'm not telling you to go out here and troll people and make death threats or anything like that. If you ever think I'm telling you to do something drastic and extreme, I'm not. Right? I'm milquetoast. Like, let's just be real. Right? I know you know that I know that you know that I know that my analysis is pretty milquetoast. Okay? I'm trying to keep the peace. I'm trying to make sure over and over and over again that our institutions are preserved because I want my kids to grow up in a nice, safe, secure system. Okay. That's who Ben Dixon is. That's who I've always been. And you know that. And I know that you know that I know that. And I know that you know that I know that you know that. Okay. All of that to say is that, you know, I'm never telling you to do anything drastic, but I am telling you that I have been wrong about your anger. I have been wrong about it because we have been engaging. I've always positioned ourselves, this show, to recognize the disingenuous actions of the Republican Party and for us to never give them an inch because they will never engage with us in good faith. And they take advantage of the fact that we want to engage with them in good faith, as evidenced by how far right we have gone as a country. And that's one of the main reasons we can't afford Joe Biden, because Joe Biden himself wants that same type of bipartisanship with people who would use and manipulate bipartisanship to destroy us. I have held that line. But now I have to hold the line. The Democratic establishment is no better. That they are not engaging in good faith, one, because they were willing to throw a racist Republican oligarch at us in order to stop Bernie Sanders. That means it's not that they don't know the truth. It's that they are actively working against the truth. Okay? And I am not a person who's going to actively work against the truth. When new evidence comes to me and it shows me that I have been wrong, I will embrace the fact that I am wrong and turn a whole new page. And my whole new page is, can we be kinder? Yes. Should we? Probably not, because we'll never be kind enough for them. They use our kindness as a tool against us. They want to silence us because one of our most powerful organizing tools is social media, particularly Twitter. They want to make us be quiet. Oh, the Twitter bros are so mean. 114,000 kids in New York City are going to starve because they will not have access to food because the schools will have to shut down because of the coronavirus. And you mean to tell me that the most pressing issue in your goddamn life is a mean tweet, you privileged prick? Oh, Ben, you should not be justifying people's anger. Why? I don't have to justify it. I don't have to try to manage it. I don't have to try to control people's anger when you have somebody like Hillary Clinton, who is the epitome of the elite, who is drenched in money, will never have another problem in her life, interjecting herself into a campaign that is really the matter of life and death for a whole lot of people. You think I can control someone's anger? Well, Ben, you can avoid fanning the flames. What flames can I stop from whatever, flaming, fanning, whatever? I'm so glad I don't take myself seriously on this show. I'm so grateful for that. But what flames can I not fan? The fact that there are thousands of people who work 60 hours a week and go to a homeless shelter because that's how our system is designed. And yet we have privileged elite establishment or establishment adjacent people, including black people, particularly boomers, who are doing everything they can to stop us from changing the system to something that was exactly the same as they had it. Matter of fact, our system, Bernie is not, even Warren. We'll talk about Warren because I got a lot of criticisms of her right now, but you're going to have to pay for it. Go to patreon.com/the BPD show. But they don't want us to go back a 3% wealth tax. You know what the top marginal rate was under Eisenhower? It was like 97% for the top marginal rate. So we're not even going back to a tax code that's remotely close to what was necessary to create the economic conditions for the boomer generation to thrive. And all we're saying is that we just want a chance. This is what's pathetic about what we're saying, right? This is why communists And real radicals look at me and be like, this dude is whack. It's because we're literally looking at you, begging you. We're pleading with you. Can we please just have some fucking crumbs so that this whole system does not implode on itself? And communists to the left of me, my radical friends are like, Ben, we're going to be patient with you because one of these days you're going to realize that you cannot get anything from the powerful through peaceful means. And I'm holding out hope. That's what my show is. Fully aware of how dire the conditions are, but I am holding out hope that we can use the electoral process to fix the problems before we implode. And again, as you know, when new information is presented to me, I will absorb it. I will not reject it. I will change my opinion based on what the facts are, and I will act accordingly. Well, that's the end of this episode for the public episode. Good 45 minutes there. If you want the rest, because we're about to turn up. We're about to turn up for real. I'm going to get in trouble in the Patrons episode. Probably not, because I'm just a milquetoast dad who wants to make sure his kids don't have to go through some type of, drastic change in our system. So I'm not going to get in that much trouble, but I am going to get in enough trouble to make it worth your while to go to patreon.com/the BPD show and becoming a patron now. Go. Because in 15 seconds, I'm going to finish the whole show with the patrons. See you there.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.patreon.com/the BPD show and support the Benjamin Dixon Show. If you like this episode, be sure to share, like, and subscribe.